навпаки деякі змінюють.
Ти казав, що ти шістньошку було.
Да, на світі реально. Оце от 2 дні стою куди далеко, чекаєш. Але в мене каже, що дякую, що наприклад, що люди двоє, я не їду 3 хвилини. Через хвилин 45-50 їм ще 40 днів. В мене таке реально, що це не так, що ну, не болить,
что-то поможет.
знаєш, ну, всі на тобі.
Я сейчас видели его сбила. Ну, у меня же просто есть
Ну, буде там тут знову все робити, прибіж туди.
Пий кожного дня.
Молоком прийдеш, і не розповідає.
Ты носишь табличку. Если кто-то похож с фамилией, все остальное, может быть, это, ну, уже как-то относится к тебе, то есть ты можешь
Добре, на понеділок в мене операція на
А, ти це вже погодилась з тобою.
лимитированное вообще количество. Мое точно не
Вона ж оплачує дорогу.
Я думаю, що це реально.
не могу.
Це ти вже будеш не одразу заняти.
Я оплачу.
Ну, так, я час трачу.
Если рано или поздно такие наши
Декілька читаєш. Багато хто казали, що
ну, так как я не нашла вообще
з нового року нашого
я хочу съездить.
Будемо гати знімати.
Одна
На тиждень це
Так нужно помочь, куда сходить, вообще у них тоже активно.
так бази будуть тут. Ну, поки що за такі
знайомі.
Так, це дуже
Вона
То есть они людям дают плюшку, то, что они дают возможность.
Good evening, everyone. We are glad to welcome here you tonight at America House. I am representing ICU-Kyiv Career Development Center with my colleague Alessa. We are, thank you. Our prime mission is to show the world of career development opportunities that are possible to reach through education. And we are glad today to have Mr. Francis Fairman as our speaker on learning. Learning is very important part of the education process, and continuous learning even is more important. And Mr. Francis Fairman is experienced continuous learner. He is also teaching English in Kyiv, business English and English for professionals for about 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Francis Fairman is South African native. He lived in England for many years, and we are excited to hear the lecture, and I will give the floor now to Francis Fairman. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this is not a formal lecture. A formal lecture is left for people who believe they are professors. And I don't believe I'm a professor. I'm just an experienced student from the University of Life. Yes, it's true what Nadia said. Now, I'm still a student at this point in time. I will never give up to study. There are two things in life that I will never stop to do. And the first one is I will never stop to study. Because if we could live in an environment without any gases and chemicals in our food and so on, our bodies can live for 450 years. 450 years. So I'm still absolutely a toddler in life. And I can promise you, I am not planning to leave the planet soon. So that's the one thing. I'll never stop to study, and the second thing, I will never stop to be physical active. That is very, very important for me. Right, okay. Before we get to that, I come from South Africa. I was born and bred there. In actual fact, I was born in the steppe. And my mother just threw me away. And the ice picked me up. And she flew all the way to South Africa. And there she saw a mother that really wanted a boy like me. And she gave me to my mother there. My ancestors comes from literally the east to the west. My great-grandmother, and my grandmother came from Prussia with an 1, 2, 3 German father. That's on my father's side, half of my father's side. And then my father's father, my grandfather, came from Holland. He was born in Willemstad. And his mother was from Norway. So I've got 12.5% Viking blood and 12.5% Slavic blood. Now luckily I'm not a woman, because if my estrogen and progesterone would start, one is this month Slavic and the other one is the next month Viking, it would have been a bad month. People, yes, I started to study late in my life. I always wanted to study since I was very, very young, but I suffered a lot of physical trauma in my life. A lot. I'm not even going to talk about everything, but a couple of them I will mention. Just to give you an idea that nothing can stop you if you want to do something. Now I see people here from different age groups and of course different professions, and all has got one desire, and you've made a choice, and life is about choices, and the choice that you've made was to come to this lesson tonight. So why did you come here?
To find some ideas about learning and to hear your experience.
But
To enrich my experience.
all right, okay. So you want to learn to learn.
Of course.
It's amazing. It's amazing how that drive is never satisfied if you've got that drive in you. Never. Right. When I was my first year at school, after the first semester, my teacher took me to the principal of the school and said, Mr. Roux, I don't know what to do with Francis, because he has read all the books of the year already. So Mr. Roux said, give him next year's books. So I read next year's books. And after a while, to the next year. When I finished first year at school, I already finished the curriculum of the third year. Now it's not because I was so clever, I just liked it, to read. But then later on in my life, I hated to read. And one of our subjects in my final year at school in matriek was Dutch. Ik heb een heftige probleem gehad met Hollandse taal. But then we had to read 10 books. And then I just took some of these Dutch short stories and I translated into English. But my teacher was a little bit cleverer than I thought she was, and she recognized some of these Dutch stories, just directly translated. I always wanted to go to university, but it was not so simple, it was not so easy. I had to work 7 years to save up money, and only then I was able to go to university. In the meantime, it was 2 years of military service, and so on and so on. Sorry. And then I started with BSc of Greek, and in the middle of that I switched over to medicine, and after that I specialized in catastrophes, rescue work, but rescue work where the adrenaline pumps, like deep sea, mountain rescues, and I carry the scars on my arms of rescue work that I've pulled the muscles out of the radius while holding patients not to drop and so on. And so that is my life. And then 2001, I looked at myself in the mirror. Now this is not a good thing to say, but I'm going to say it. And I said to myself, Francis, you know what? You've got no patriotism left for a country that you've served 2 years, 18 months operational in war and so on. And then I packed my bags, gave everything to friends, family, and I went to London. Cut the long story short, I lived there for 3.5 years, Scotland, Ireland. I worked on Tony Blair's farm. I like farming as well. I grew up on a farm. And there I did some courses in England. I always find something to do. When you want to study, there are 2 questions that you have to ask yourself. The first one is, why do I want to do this course? Why do I want to study it? Am I forced to do it? Or am I doing it because I want to do it? That is the most important question. If you are forced to do your maths, and you know you have to do it, or your bookkeeping, and all the books have to balance, which mine never balanced in any case. So, because if I've got 100 grivni and I spend 20, I've got 80 left. And that's what my financial perception was. But that is a most important question. Because the moment that you cannot answer that question to yourself, give it up. You're not going to make it. I can promise you, you're not going to make it. You must decide for yourself so that you can become focused in yourself, not on your work, but in yourself. And believe you me, it takes a lot of self-discipline. It takes a lot of self-discipline. To sit on a Saturday evening, on a Sunday morning, when you know your friends or other people are still sleeping, on a Saturday evening, you know they are enjoying the evening. I learned a lot here in the meantime. So that is very, very important, people. To be focused in yourself. Concerning languages. Welcome, we've been waiting for you. Right. Concerning languages, people, how many of you speak more than 3 languages? And we're not talking about Zurich. Okay? How many of you speak more than 3 languages?
3.5.
3.5, very good. 4, 5, 6, 7, 6. I congratulate you. That's a woman with a lot of self-drive. Okay. I'm busy with my 8th one. And that is Japanese. I love it. I love it. I studied last year. I decided, well, I must make a change. I'm sick and tired of Latin alphabet. I'm tired of Cyrillic alphabet. I can write Tviord is not, Mjach is not. I still have a problem with pronunciation of that. And so I studied the Arabic alphabet, and then I stopped that because I didn't feel the language. I didn't, and now listen what I'm saying, I didn't feel the language. When you hear music, a song or people speaking, and you like it, I promise you, you can learn that language. You can learn that language. Apart from the genetics, because genetics has got a big role in it. Genetics has got a big role in it. If I will marry a beautiful Ukrainian woman, well, I'm sure we will have a baby or 2, maybe 3. Then our child will have no difficulty in learning Afrikaans or English or Ukrainian. Those languages that child will learn very, very easily. And I can prove it. I never learned Swedish or Norwegian language. Well, after a while I looked at it. But I got a letter from Tesla Motors in Norway, not long ago. And I read this thing. In their little, Finnish language with little dots on top and so on, small little circles and so on. And I read it and I understood 20% of it. And it's simply because the genetics are in me for that language. So that is one big plus. But anything, not only for languages, I'm just taking language as an example. Any other topic for that matter, if you want to do it. My first year at university, physics, first semester, 5%. 5% in exam, yes, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The professor, there was 120 students in the class. I'm the guy with the hardest beard because I worked 7 years before I had the opportunity to go there, to the clever people. He called me to get my paper until the end, and he called me to the front. And he said to me, Mr. Fairman, what are you doing here? 5%. And imagine 120 like a church choir laughing at me. And this professor was a very active professor. He wrote all the questions on the board out and so on. So I looked for the eraser and I erased half of his work and I wrote there just this size. Watch me now. End of the year, I passed physics with 87%. Same story for maths. And now I find myself 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning studying integrals and differentiations and stuff like that on computer or biochemistry or something like that. Right, that is all concerning one point, and that is the most important. If you want to study, make up your mind, what you want to do, and answer the question to yourself, why? Do I want to study Arabic language to become a translator because I can get a big salary? If that is a motivation, go for it. But still remember, especially in languages, and there's no excuse about, oh, you know, I'm not talented for languages. I cannot learn languages. That's nonsense. That is straightforward nonsense. Because, you know, baboons, they've got their own language of 300 vocal sounds without their scratching, hugging of body language. That's a baboon language. So if a baboon can communicate, yes, Darwin is not here. Right, okay. Now when we start to study, I might say this quickly before we carry on. You know, I said in the beginning, I suffered a lot of trauma. When I was 4 years old, I was involved in my first car accident. There was a grasshopper in the car. I caught it, I wanted to open the window, I opened the door, and off you go. And it was on the main road. And I was 4 years old. Now go back in your own minds to something that you can remember way back in your life. I can still remember as it happened yesterday, the moment that I fell out of the car before my head hit the asphalt, the tar road. That moment I can remember as vividly as anything that I've done this morning. I can also remember a man gave me to my mother. And from there on, I woke up in the hospital, and from there on, I didn't lose consciousness again. Another experience, when I was third year medicine, I suffered the respiratory arrest and cardiac arrest, which was the fourth respiratory arrest I suffered in my life, and the second cardiac arrest. And apart from that, I've done an Ironman competition. I've done biathlons, triathlons, and so on and so on. So, there, I lost consciousness for 5 days. 5 days. After the car accident, they said, oh, to my parents, he will suffer from epilepsy, he will suffer from this. They made a lot of medical diagnoses. Those doctors read too much, I presume. And in any case, it never happened, and it will never happen. To give you an idea, after the 5th day when I regained consciousness, I looked at this beautiful woman who visited me in the hospital. And I said to her, you know, I know you from somewhere. Doesn't that sound familiar, boys? I know you from somewhere. In the meantime, I've been married to this woman already for 11 years. But I did not know who she was. For God's sake, I want to continue my studies. Where's my memory? It's gone. I spoke about 6 different topics in one sentence. I bred with parrots. That was my hobby. I bred with parrots. People, that's one thing. You have to have a hobby. Apart from your sport, you have to have a hobby. Because that is something that you do because you love it. And when you love it, dopamine increases in the thalamus and in the midbrain. And you don't need anything else because you've got everything inside you. So don't take anything else what they offer you. You've got enough here to be happy. So in any case, I could not distinguish between color, and I could not pronounce the letter R. And I spoke randomly about many things, but I would start to speak about topic A, after 3-4 words, B, C, D, and then come back to A. And that's how I spoke. And they thought I was crazy. Another thing that caught up with me then was post-traumatic stress disorder. That was terrible. After severe trauma, patients who suffer from that, it's terrible. I could not stand neon lights. When I lost consciousness of the last time, I'm mentioning these things, people, because I've been there. I worn the t-shirt. It's not a matter of, oh, we've did the experiment on a rat, and we've did the experiment on a monkey, and this and that. If I have resuscitated 2,000 people in my life, I'm not telling a lie. If I have caught 1,000 babies in my life, I don't tell a lie. Maybe more. And I worked in trauma. So for me, to help a woman giving birth is under traumatized situations. Trapped in a car accident, trapped in a vehicle, and so on, giving premature birth and so on. That takes of you, I can tell you. So, in any case, I could not distinguish between color, and I couldn't say R. So, I said, you cannot continue with your studies. I said to the dean of the faculty, I said, listen, professor, you don't know what you're talking about. You keep my chair open because I'm paying for it myself, not you. After 6 months, I did all the tests again, and I got a distinction mark for everything, so there was nothing wrong here. And until today, I believe there's nothing wrong. Currently at this moment, I'm enrolled for MBA Leadership and Sustainability with Switzerland and Cambridge University in England. And as a hobby, my sideline is my Japanese language. Right. That brings us to focused and diffuse mode of the mind. Like you are sitting here, you are listening to me. Some of you are focused, some of you are a little bit diffused, in a resting phase. But if we want to study, in the olden days, they used to say, we can study for 40-45 minutes, concentrate for that time. Now they've changed it. They've changed it to 25 minutes, 25-30 minutes. And I don't know, maybe it's because of all the things that happened in my head. I like the shorter one. But I can sit for 3 hours. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm so used to it. I've spent 21 of my years academically already. And I'm not so old as you think I am. So, but after 25-30 minutes, we start to lose concentration. But with all the gadgets that we've got today, life has changed, and we have to keep up with that. It's fantastic. I think the most important development on this planet was not when they landed on the moon or whatever. It's a computer. Because that is an amazing tool for us if we use it correctly. But it makes us lazy. It makes us lazy. I want to tell you now, if you want to study a language, you cannot rely on Daddy Google. He lies about a lot of things. But he can help you out in a conversation if you just have to find a word quickly on your telephone. That's good. But you have to have, if you study a language, you have to have a dictionary in book form. And you have to pakjapnoot, underline the words that you visit in that book. Make sure. And you have to revise it. That story of, oh, today I'm learning 20 words. Open the dictionary, find 20 words and learn that. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. Where do I get my vocabulary from? For a normal conversation, we need how many words to articulate? How many?
500.
That's a very, very preschool conversation. But it's a conversation, Nadia. For a normal day, in our work, we need 2,000 words. We need 2,000 words to articulate, to communicate. So, where do we get our words from? From our conversation, from our daily conversation, because it's hearing, it's visual, and kinesthetic. Movement. So, that is how you learn the words. By using, do you agree with me? Really? Very good. Very good. And we don't even know each other, and she agrees with me. Right, okay. So that is the diffuse, and the diffuse mode is like when we just sit and relax. But that is when the ideas come forward. Now, you know, to talk about learning is not to explain mathematical or statistics or physics or biology in sequence, the one follows the other one and so on. To talk about this, I have to talk holistically to you. I have to talk about everything as a whole. Not a hole in your head, as a whole, complete. So, if we look at the brain, we've got you all know this, frontal lobe, parietal, temporal, occipital, cerebellum, and the midbrain. Yeah, we all know this. Of course, you have to, there are certain things you have to know in life, whether it's your subject or not. What's the temperature now? Do you know? Right? 20. 21. Celsius, Kelvin, or Fahrenheit? Can you, and the formula to go to Fahrenheit?
We don't use it.
No, oh Allah! I never. You erase that. You erase that from your mind. If you want to study, if you want to learn, you erase that from your mind. I don't need that. That is something I get a lot in Ukraine. And I'm living in Ukraine. That's why I'm talking about Ukraine. Ukraine is also my country like it is yours. I'm living here for 10 years. Sorry. Like in the gym the other day. I only clean the gym, so by the way. So some of these instructors, I asked them about do they have any training for people after operations, small little operations, appendectomy or little knee operation, just to help that guy. They don't have. In South Africa, you cannot work as an instructor in a gym if you cannot do a full resus. It's law. You cannot get that job. And this guy answered me the same way. He said, I don't need it. We don't need it. People, there's not something to say, I don't need this, or I'll try. You take those words out of your mind. Because if you start to say, I'll try to do it, you can just as well give up. Because the seed is planted there. The seed is planted there. You're standing with the one foot on the ground and the other one on a banana skin. So you're going to slip some other time. That's what I've said. From the beginning, you make up your mind, you decide, I want to do it or I don't want to do it. Right. Getting back to this part, this drawing. Sorry, can you people see on this side?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I understand, yeah, it will be better. I'm not going to go into detail of the anatomy. Really, if we're going to do brain anatomy, you will sit here until next month, this time, I can promise you. But the frontal lobe, that is where our character, our personality, our thought are all in this area, in the frontal lobe. That is why during the Second World War they made a lot of people zombies, simply by sticking up a needle through the skull and just scratch out the frontal lobe. And those people, I knew actually somebody who had a family member who it happened with in the Second World War. So they just become a zombie, and a zombie is somebody who can still, in a certain extent, think for himself, but he's got no short-term memory or left. And if you will tell him to stand like this, he will stand like this until you come back and say, take off your hand, take your hand away, you can go. But otherwise he will stand there, like that. The parietal lobe is where our intelligence, reasoning, and telling from left to right, and speech on the left hand side, and also on the right hand side, when you will see a beautiful girl, look at that smile, comes from the right hand side. But when you know this girl already better, my boy, the left hand side starts to work. So the right hand side of the parietal lobe gives idea, well, that's an attractive woman, or publicate on the machine, or something like that. And then from the left hand side is that have the result that you see a Kolaski somewhere. Right. Okay. The temporal lobe is for where our speech and behavior, memory and learning and vision and emotions are situated. Now this thing about emotions. You know, when I stand in metro, I never sit. And I look down the corridor and I look at the faces of the people. And I will pick the saddest face. And I will move up. And then I will take my finger and I will stick it in the guy's ribs. Now immediately I crossed a line, And then what do I do to get myself out of trouble? I speak in English to you. And I just ask a stupid question about where's the next metro station, or a different metro station on another line, and so on. Why do I do that? To take this guy's mind off from what is bothering him. Because his whole facial expression changes immediately. And he's forced to answer me, whether he can speak English or not. He has to give me an answer because I'm standing right in his face. So, for that moment, I take that person's concentration away from what is bothering him. And it's amazing. It's amazing. It is like a patient that is in a diabetic coma, and you give them glucose, 50% glucose, and then when they wake up, they all wake up with a smile, honestly. So glad they're not there anymore. So, and the same thing with these people. Right, okay. Occipital lobe. Occipital lobe is for, not only for vision, but also for analyzing the structure that we are looking at. We don't see with our eyes. We see with our brain. The eye is only a lens, but we don't see with the eye. We see with the brain. If I will, and this little sketch that I've made here, our optic nerve, half of it crosses over to the left-hand side, and half of it crosses over to the right-hand side. So in actual, and one half stays on the same side. So in actual fact, if I will damage the nerve, for instance there, if I will damage the nerve, then you will see on the opposite side, for instance, that part of the paper, you will not see it. And that comes in with people who suffer small emboli, insult. A lot of those people have got vision problems. Insult, okay. Right. So I've spoken a lot about the learning and the process of learning. First thing, when we start to learn, we've made up our mind, we want to study whatever we want to study. So what is the first thing you will do, my girl? Tell me. Tell us.
You mean while learning?
When you start, what are you going to do? You decided you're going to focus for some time. How long? Say half an hour. Okay, what are you going to do?
I will start with theory.
Theory. Okay, what else?
Well, it depends what I'm going to learn, the subject.
You make a plan.
Time.
Spare time.
Alright, okay. People, the first thing, switch off your phone. Honestly, switch off your phone. And it doesn't matter who bothers you. You cannot focus. And this illusion that you have, oh, it's on. Daddy Google, he shows me there, so it's there. Put the book under your pillow and sleep on it. Put the plugs in your ears and listen the whole night through. I've tried all these things. It doesn't work, because my dreams that I dream are more powerful than the stuff that I listen to. I dream every night. I like it. So, switch off. Really, try this. Put yourself in a focus mode and concentrate. Now I'm going to give you another tip. For learning. Actually, three things. make use of other parts of your brain. Our memory is not only in the frontal part. Our memory is diffusely in all other parts of the brain. And if we will, there are 1,000 billion, approximately. Some say 100 billion, which is also an enormous figure. Some say 1,000 billion. But whatever is right, I would go for 1,000 billion neurons. If we will, in your body, if you will add them head to tail, we will go twice around the globe. Now that's a long distance. That's our nervous system. 20 times thinner than one hair. 20 times thinner, to give you an idea of what's going on. And we've got all different areas in the brain. Are you hungry? No. Who's hungry? Good. So, if I will put a nice plate of South African food, which is nice steak, rice, pumpkin, peas, and whatever nice veggies in front of you, what's happening?
I will eat what?
Immediately, without even saying thank you.
Up to that.
Okay. Smell. We will smell it. And we will see it. Smell, olfactory nerve, yeah. See it. Occipital. Think, what am I seeing? Feel from the midbrain, the hunger. So does it all just come there? No, it's all impulses from different areas in the brain. Now for God's sake, people, why don't we use all those parts when we want to study something? Eat that information. Taste it. Like if I say the word privasgotnia, I can feel it here in my throat. I can feel the word. Honestly, I can feel the word. I can taste it. My mouth gives more saliva when I say the word privasgotnia. I don't know why, but I like that word. So that is what you have to do with, and not I'm taking a language because currently it's my hobby to study languages. But you do that with the subject or the topic that you want to master. Now, another subject that we had in medical school is histology. Who of you are doctors here? Fantastic. Well done, lad. Well done on our side. Right. I'm going to take you to
Not
South
doctors,
Africa.
medical students.
Very, very good. Very good. You know, I arranged some years ago, sorry to say this, I arranged some years ago to take some medical students in their final year to South Africa. I flew back to South Africa. I arranged there at the biggest trauma hospital in the southern hemisphere, Unitas Hospital. I had meetings with the 3 directors of that hospital to allow Ukrainian students, doctors to come and work there. I came back to the university. There was no money to be seen, and the whole project just drifted away. It's a pity, because there you could learn a lot about trauma. Okay, now as well. But in any case, get back to hunger. So you can feel it, you can taste it, everything is starting to work. And that is, when you want to learn something, you must be so enthusiastic. You must be so enthusiastic. I read a book when I was 19 years old, which was not long ago, a couple of moons ago. Written by Sylvarian Yesudian and Elizabeth Hay. They've got a yoga school in Switzerland. A friend of mine brought me the book from there. This book taught me one thing. It taught me how to use energy in my mind that is created for something else, to use that for something different. How is that possible, Francis? For 5 years, I did karate. I loved it. 5 years. I trained every day except on a Monday. And when I went into the dojo, I used my sexual energy, my sexual drive to punch and to kick. And it was one punch and it was one kick. But I never explained it. I never explained how to do it. But you can use people, you can use other basic energies. If we look at Maslow's triangle, if we start from the beginning, we can use different levels and transfer it by ourselves into other. I'm telling you a lot of things here tonight because I really want you to experiment and to do things for yourself. Self-hypnosis is a fantastic therapy. Read about it, practice it. It's absolutely not against religion, it's absolutely not against your health, it's not against any moral standards or anything. It's real, it's for you. Do it. If I'm very tired, I sleep 4 hours a day. I promise you, which is wrong. I must sleep more because the cells in the brain cells need time to rest. Because when we sleep, the brain cells shrink. And then as any cell in the body has got the metabolism going on, nutritional, and which cells do we get that feeds the neurons? Astrocytes. Astrocytes and the glial cells in the brain, eh? So the astrocytes, those cells feed, they bring the food, they bring the glucose to the brain. And the brain can never be without glucose. If you don't have glucose, your gluconeogenesis starts in the liver and off you go. You get it. And when they dissected a good friend of mine's brain, I will not ask us to stand for a minute in quiet, but he was a very good friend of mine. When they dissected his brain, and he was unbelievable clever. When they dissected his brain, they found the only difference between his brain and other brains are he had more astrocytes. Nothing more about bigger or longer axons or dendrita or anything of the neurons. Absolutely, only more astrocytes. Short story, quickly. I had 3 very good friends, and we studied at Polytechnische Universiteit together. It was me, Albert Einstein, Sikorsky, and Mendeleev. And we were close buddies. People, I come from a citrus farm, so long before I came to Ukraine to learn about Samagон, we made it with oranges and pineapples and marulas and everything, mangoes and lychees on that side. And when I came here and studied with these guys, I used to bring some from South Africa. And then Albert will ask me, how much of this, how much of that, how much of this have you put in here? How long have you cooked it and boiled it and so on? And then Mendelssohn would take it, like I looked at my water against the light. And then at the end, Sikorsky will tell us how to drive home. So the whole thing is, what I'm trying to say there, with this analog, with this little story, there were 4 guys. Each one had his own job. The brain works the same way. We build up what we call chunks of information. A chunk is like a whole lot of neurons that create a specific idea. Now, remember one thing, why I've made that little sketch. Those, if you, what is your name? Taras, who said he's hungry. Those chunks are in the smell, in the taste, in the vision. So that is how we get our ideas from. We put it all together to get to the end result, to the action. And that is what we call, in the brain, what they call to build chunks. Now when you start to do something new, completely new, then you will not remember it. Because we've got working memory and we've got long-term memory. And we've got very, very, very long memory. All depends if you want it or not. But working memory, we can really observe and concentrate on maximum 4 things. And that is not like, in the street, the taxi drivers, I can smoke, drink coffee, drive, and speak on my phone at the same time. 4 things, I can do that. That is not that. I'm talking about when you are busy doing something, in your short-term memory you can preserve 4 topics or items that you are going to conglomerate later on and put together. And our long-term memory works like a storeroom. There we, like a warehouse. We take it and we put it there on the shelf and put it there on the shelf. But if we don't revise that long-term memory, we're going to lose it. Because when we sleep, people, you know, like every 6 months in your body, your skeleton is reformed again. After 6 months, you've got basically a new skeleton, because that is why if you've got fractures like I have, you get callus on it, and that on the bone, the wound becomes thicker and thicker. And the same thing with memory. Long-term memory, we have to revise it. But when we sleep, and we don't use that, our axons from those chunks, they can take some of those axons from those nerves that you've used for other memories, for something that you wanted to remember. Maybe your very, very, very first boyfriend. You want to remember him. But you don't think about him for the past 10 years anymore. So, in the meantime, you've met John and you've met Phil and you got married to John's best friend. Okay. So, those neurons that we don't use, they don't get lost, but they get stored, not linked up to this chunk that is formed by all the different neurons from all the different parts in the brain. So it's very, very important if we start to study something to revise it. And to revise, you can really revise something at the period in the beginning, every week, and then eventually you can leave it for 1 month. Now we cannot go and revise everything that we've learned in our lives every month. It's impossible. It is just impossible. But sometimes we can remember something. While you're walking in the street, while you're doing something else, you just remember something. And then we go into that chunk, and we remember what we've done. And that is how we stimulate it again. And that one stimulates another one, and that one another one, and so on, until you've got the whole concept in your mind. Okay. Can I just take a little bit of water for mine? This is water, doctor. Right. That is in the learning process. Now, I want you to at the back of your piece of paper that you've got, at the back of the piece of paper that you've got, that you have to complete, just write there, or any piece of paper, just write there 4 or 5 ways that you use to study. 4 or 5 ways, methods that you use to study. But just make it short, people. Just make 4 or 5 words. That, what is your method that you use? We all have methods. Spoken about everything. Oh yes, it's good. I look there now. I want to get back to the tip. Alright. Okay, this is only for yourself. Because you are going to, at the end of the lesson, which will be tomorrow, just before breakfast, then you're going to write down another 5 and see if you have improved, or maybe you can share your ideas then with me, and I can change my mind. Right, you know, if you want to study something very difficult, I started to speak about histology as a subject, and then Korsakov got me again and took some of my memory away and so on. But we've got one part in the parietal lobe on the right hand side, which we use when we get into a room to judge the space. And when we travel, the speed of a car, oncoming car, and so on, to calculate that quickly, and well, that computer is so quick and 100% accurate. But why don't we use it? Why don't we use it? But how will you use it? You're studying, right? You're studying something. How are you going to use that part? Tell me quickly.
Write words on the pieces of paper and look around the kitchen.
To get back new ideas, because that's a diffuse way, so you will develop new ideas. Yes, that can work. People, to study the human cell, different cells in the body, it doesn't matter. Let's take one cell as an example. With your nucleus, your Golgi apparatus, lysosome, mitochondria, and all the organella in the cell. And histology was a very low mark subject for our students. What about your students? Did you score a high score in histology?
I never, yeah.
And I sat there and I didn't like it very much. And then I changed my way of thinking about it. I looked under the microscope, and then I went to the cell and I knocked on the door. And he opened the door and he invited me in. And I walked inside the cell. On the right hand side, the nucleus. On the left hand side, the Golgi apparatus. Oh, there's a lysosome. And there's a mitochondria. And I visualized it. And immediately, what does a lysosome do? What does a mitochondria do? Oh, mitochondria is where ATP and electrons get off, and energy and so on, oxygen and so on. Immediately. And the same with the contraction of muscle, actin, myosin, filamenta. How they work. Go into that thing that you are studying. Put yourself, use your spatial part of your brain to put yourself into that area, what you are studying. If you are studying, for instance, IT, like we believed when I was a child, in the radio there's a little man sitting inside and talking. Television, the same thing. Put yourself into it. Imagine you're inside that organism or technical apparatus or something like that. To be part of it. To become part of it. The moment that you become part of what you are studying, it's amazing. You will never forget it. And you will never fall into the illusion trap of, oh, I know this. Because you don't know it. And these highlighters, all these different colors, I'm guilty of that. I had a friend, one of my friends who studied with me, he bought a book, and he will sit, Johan will sit and he will read that book. There's not a pencil in his hand, nothing. And he will close that book and he knows it. I have a whole bag of colors and paint here and paint there. Illusion. Because I mark it, yes, I know it. After half an hour, what have I did there? I cannot remember it. So that is a trap that we put and set for ourselves. Discipline yourself. Discipline yourself. That is the most important word for everything. Discipline yourself to reach your goal. Right. Let me just think about something else quickly before I say. I've written a lot of things here, so I just want to see if I've covered everything. Yes, there's two other things that we can use. What about subconscious mind? What is the subconscious? Everybody has got a subconscious mind.
Yeah.
What does your subconscious do?
It's like animal instincts, some kind of that.
It's a thing that controls your life.
Okay, thought processes, thought processing, emotions, what else? Motivation.
Everything from limbic system.
Yes, experience that we don't, experience that we don't realize is done by cerebellum, but also with subconscious. Like riding a bicycle, you don't think how to ride it, and driving a car and so on, and you don't think how to do it, you just get on and you do it. And I also put, I don't know where to hang in my brain, dreams. So I've put it there, in unconscious mind, for some other reason. Yes, there's something else that is very important that I just want to share with you quickly. And I found it. Give me a second. Okay. So we can also add memory there to our subconscious mind. Oh yes, there's a Korsakov, thank you. Emotions. People, I grew up in a house, my mother had auburn hair, very emotional woman, very, very emotional. She was a hairdresser. My father, he heard his mother died, he showed nothing, no emotion, like a chow dog. Doesn't show emotion at all. He very seldom spoke and so on, but I'm not here to discuss my parents. Emotions. And from the Soviet Union side, the KGB style, you don't show emotions. And that's nonsense. It's in one word, sorry to say it so directly. I've treated patients that I know there must be a saphenous and a bacillary vein, that I cannot see it. As I'm crying, my eyes are filled with tears. I cannot see, I just feel to administer a drug. I've seen and experienced horrific stuff in my life. And emotions, that is what makes me me. And people, if you don't use that, it is like pudding. It is great if you start to use your emotions. Use your emotions when you are studying. Because if you use your emotions, what happens? I'm not talking about negative emotions, anger, rejection, repulsiveness. I'm talking about the dobre, the loving part of positive side of us. It's a great stimulator in the learning process. It's a great motivator for the next page. And these are things that I love. You know, in my culture, if I walk in the street and somebody comes on this side, opposite me, and I don't know the person, I will say good morning. We will greet each other. Whether you know the person, if he's on the other side of the road, and there's only the two of you, you will just lift your hand. And I even do it today. And when I came to Ukraine, in the morning, Dobry. Is he cuckoos or what? And the old woman with these little carts that they pull, someone's got gold in it, someone's got cabbage in it, I don't know what. And then I would see this old woman battle, and once I tried at the market to help her to lift it up, and she grabbed it. Maybe she thought to steal it. And then I stood in a queue again, and in front of me stood a very beautiful girl, and she was buying tomatoes. And tomatoes remember me about one thing: timers, people, timers. When you study, time yourself. Somebody said something about timing, you said it. I'm not pointing my finger at you. Don't make a court case. Just speaking. So, so she paid 5 gruwelike, grieving, 5 grieving. And I took from the same box and I gave it to her, and I just heard what she said, because I'm learning Russian, polkilo, пожалуйста. I heard and I said the same thing, and mine was 8 grieving. So I said to her, почему? So she said something there, and she was really a beautiful woman. Really a beautiful woman. So I just bent over and I kissed her on her cheek. And I said, spasiba. And she gave me the tomatoes and didn't want money. But I gave her 8 grivni because and every time when I went to the market, all the other women around her said, there's your boyfriend coming, there's your boyfriend coming. So my emotions gave me a permanent skit card. So people really, emotions are things that we have that are absolutely wonderful and enjoyable tools to use in our studying. Right, okay, now, get back to business. Write down quickly. Correct there. See if you can correct your study style according to what you've listened to, all my t-shirts that I've worn and all my stories and all my things. And if you've got any questions, please, feel free. Don't tell me there's no questions.
Yeah. What can you suggest if I need to write around 10 different essays in English and it's
Essays?
Yeah, essays, different topics, and it's getting really hard. Like I just sit down and don't know what I need to do.
Aha, very wonderful. Because your timing, when must you hand it in?
As soon as possible.
Sorry for that. Very good, my boy, very good. I had a student a month ago who studied in England, and he studied political psychology and philosophy, a bachelor in that. And he had to do his dissertation. And the whole style like we do here, take it from Wikipedia, change the Latin I with the Ukrainian I, and off you go. And the professor was very, very kind, very kind. And he sent it back to this guy, and he said, sir, please, rewrite the whole thing in your own words. Tell me about it. Otherwise, you're going to fail. So this guy found myself on Preply and so on, and he contacted me. And I never studied politics, but I come from, which he didn't knew, to his luck. I come from a political family. My grandmother's brother was Prime Minister of South Africa some years ago. On my mother's side, on my father's side, my grandfather was executed by General Smith with a fire squad when my father was 11 years old. So, and a lot of political other stuff in my family. But he left his dissertation to the last moment, like our friend left his 10 essays to the last moment. So what I would suggest is to start to split them up. How many have you written already?
2.
2 of 10.
Yeah.
Now, you have to play chameleon with your essays. Chameleon changes color. So, you have to space your work. Start with the essay that is the most difficult or easy?
Easy.
No. Eat your frogs first. Although frogs is very nice. Very expensive. Delicatessen. Start with the most difficult topic. Do that first. And then don't try and work on all of them or think about it. You have to discipline yourself now, really. You have to go and take your time span that you have and start with the most difficult one, because you know if the most difficult one took you 10 hours of work or 5 hours of work, it will become less and less and less. Then you're going to reach your target. But if you're going to do it the other way around, you're going to lose out. And you have to isolate your mind from one topic to the other one. Absolutely. You have to, like Nadia said, go to the kitchen. Think about something completely different. It works. I worked in Scotland. I worked in Scotland. It's the biggest strawberry farm there. And when I was a medical student, my beautiful ex-wife, she also studied dentistry. So I had to pay, and my daughter was at school and so on. I had to pay. I have to get money. How did I get money? I had my own furniture shop. I made beautiful, beautiful furniture with these hands. I can make anything. Absolutely beautiful stuff, which my father taught us to do. But in any case, in the strawberry farm, in the tunnels, Teplitsa, in the Teplitsa, they are long, 100 meters, 10 meters to 5 meters high. And I had Lockie Porter, the owner, and the farm manager, they decided, right, we're not going to plant on the side anymore, because we get condensation inside the tunnels, and that drips on the soft fruit, and then mold, and we lose a lot of tons and tons of fruit. So the side rows we're not going to plant. So I was doing QCing on the farm, quality control, and I said, okay, I just heard them speaking about it. And I turned around, I was in the kitchen. I walked, and I listened to them talking about this topic. And I turned around, I said to Lockie, sorry, but I can solve that problem for you. Oh, Francis, what do you know about strawberry farming? You come from South Africa. But what Lockie didn't knew was, when I was a student, I made this stuff. I made windows and doors. And I cut grooves in here for water to run down and not to go inside. And for me to do that, I went back to physics and I studied the molecular structure of H2O and the van der Waals-krachten and the 32 degrees of hydrogen bonds on the oxygen. And that's the only fluid that can start at, because of capillary strength, at the root of a 300-foot tree, redwood tree, up to the top and make one stream of water. There's no other liquid that can do it. Only water can do it. No oil, nothing can do that. So, long story short, 3 months later, I sent in an application to register a patent to keep the condensation water away from the fruit. So, that is how your brain works. Now you must stop your nervousness. Yes, you must stop your nervousness and stop to worry. And give your brain a chance to think. Not you telling your brain what to do. And these words that I'm using now, people, think what I'm saying. Don't tell your brain what to do. Let your brain tell you what to do. You follow the steps, and you make the turn, and you make the move that your brain tells you. Not what you read and what you think, before you've considered another. You'll take my phone number, you'll let me know.
Thank you.
Yes, my friend.
When you concentrate, be it work or study, do you listen to ambient sounds or music, or you prefer silence?
Very good question. Very, very, very good question. I love music. I've been trying to play guitar for many years, but it's just an ornament there. Yes, that brings me to a very good point. Thank you for the question. Music is music. But what we hear lately, doof, 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 doof. That's. I've made a very, very big study over some years, almost 5 years that I've worked on that project of noise. The effect of noise on the body. It is the biggest and strongest pathology for our system. Is noise. I like to listen to music, yes, I like. But now here comes the difference in people. What kind of music are you going to listen to? Bach? Yes, sometimes. Mozart? Yes, sometimes. I like all kinds of music. Really, I grew up in a house, my father played violin and so on, and I do something bad here in Ukraine, I whistle in the house. But if you hear me whistle, stand outside, let's go to the bank, you will stand with the bags in your hand, I will go in the bank and I will whistle, and all the money that comes out, you catch it for us. So listen to music that you like. Listen to music that you like. Because what happens in the brain then? Dopamine goes up. Dopamine goes up. So you've got acetylcholine, dopamine, serotonin, and noradrenaline and so on. But when you listen to music that you like, yes, working or studying. Anybody else?
Is it good to listen to music when you study?
Is it good to listen to music?
Yeah, I know that it to diffuse your concentration.
To break your concentration. Yeah. Yes, again, we get back to what kind of music are you listening to? That is the whole thing. You have to listen to music that you feel relaxed with. There's this one group here in Kyiv where they study English, and you go into the room there and everybody just lie, the dimmed lights and baroque music, and they just lie there on a big fat pillow and they listen. They don't write, they don't read, they just listen to the music, and then this tutor sits in front like a god, and he just reads and they listen, and that is how they learn. But if you put up music that you like, yes, absolutely. I never study without music. I like heavy metal, I like Meatloaf, I like Neil Diamond, I love Neil Diamond. So, I hope people that the future ain't gonna be what it used to be for you now. Do you understand what I'm saying? I hope that the future ain't gonna be what it used to be. Now, how do you understand that? Quickly, decipher this sentence for me. I'm talking about future, and I hope that the future ain't gonna be what it used to be. Past tense.
Yeah.
The future used to be.
Like today is the first day of rest of life of our life.
Today is the rest of
First day of the rest.
the first day. That's a beginning. Yes. I'm married to this girl. We've got a future. We're planning it. She wants a red Ferrari. I want a blue Maserati. Yes, and we work and we work. We plan our future. Whoops, boomerang. She meets another guy. People, And that's one thing. You cannot force somebody to love you. Never. But that's a different story. Okay. So, whoops, you get divorced. Oh man. Don't want to see you. If I see you, never. It's going to be too soon. So, now, your future change. You start to think about other things for the future. Now that's what I've said. I hope that the future won't be like it used to be before we came to this holistic lesson. Thank you. Any questions for the last time? Yes.
As you said before, you can speak 8 languages, right?
Yes.
Then
I cannot speak Japanese yet, but I will soon.
Yeah. Then I have 2 questions for you. The first is like, could you name them all?
Could I?
Could you name them all?
Of course I can.
And the second is, how do you think, how much time is it required to take to become fluent in a new language? Like language which is not connected to the one that we know already.
That's a good question. Like for instance, studying Slavic languages, studying Latin group of languages, the different groups of languages. It all depends again on how much feeling you have for that language. This thing, it's a good question. I've seen it here. Learn Spanish, learn English in 3 months. Yes, I can learn good morning, goodbye, how are you? Have you got a cat? Have you got a dog? Have you got a grandma and a grandpa? That you can learn in 3 months, yes. To have a conversation. How many of the people, the students are studying English for 10 years and then they have got the problem they cannot speak. That is where it comes in. But yes, certain languages, like for instance, with Japanese, there are 3 alphabets. And the one that originated from the Chinese has got over 20,000 hieroglyphs. But they are linked with one another and so on and so on and so on. So it all depends on how much interest you have for it. Because for instance, if I speak Zulu, there are 2 words that is very, very powerful that I use for myself. One is umkuba, and the other one is tlakinapile. Tlakinapile, it means your common sense. Use your common sense, man. Think for yourself, and so on. So it's absolutely wonderful if you, like that girl in the back, I don't know whether it's the same with you. If you think, you don't only think sometimes in the one language. I jump around from one language to the other one and so on and so on. Хватит. Український. Добре, хурамку. Дякую. Yes, I can say it. I understand it. I don't study Ukrainian officially now because I don't know Russian good enough. And my native language, Afrikaans, we've got many Russian words in it. Broek, stoel, matras, kraan, divan, apteek, bibliotheek, juwelier, beton, water, and hungry man, frikadel. Yes, frikadel, sorry. Ukrainian, we've got 2 words. Smaak, we say smaak, S-M-A-A-K, and niertjie, kidney, niertjie. And papier is international. But very, very interesting where we got these words from. I must say it quickly, not because of my prababushka who whispered in my ear. During the first and second Anglo-Boer wars that we had in South Africa, Russia supplied us with felchers and with medication, but not with rifles and soldiers and so on. They supplied us with medical help. And that was in the year 1887, 85. And at that time, Afrikaans was absolute in its embryonic phase of development. And then we took a lot of words. One word from Malaysian language, Abba, that means to carry your baby on your back, your child on your back, to Abba your child, and so on and so on. And this G sound that you've got in Ukrainian, where does that come from? G, the soft G. From Gaelic. That comes from Gaelic. Although I don't speak Ukrainian as well as I speak Russian, but I've made an intense study because I'm living here. Where does these Ukrainian people come from? Walla, 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 walla. Genetics. 11, 13 nations. Language. The same thing. A lot in the pot. But basically Russian and Polish and so on. Okay. Thank you, people. I don't want to keep you longer. I hope you it was worthwhile for you, and I hope that your future won't be the same as it used to be. I just want to, can I just say one thing quickly? You stay here. What I also do apart from teaching English people, I have to say it, I'm absolutely an expert in putting companies together. I'm an expert in helping companies when they are in transition phases of changing CEO or top management, or going to a joint venture and finding a new niche for their company. And also, you can put me on the moon. You can put me anywhere. I will never be without bread on my table. Never. Because God gave me something here, grey matter. I will find something to do. I did a medical project for government. I did a huge project that I wanted to do between a tractor company here and a company I have in South Africa and so on. So, like I've said about the patent that I've registered, your ideas just never stop. And that is one thing, at last, that I want to say, that you have to start to think about and believe in yourself. It doesn't mean because you're an IT specialist or you're a neurosurgeon that you cannot think about something else or create something else or register a patent on agriculture or something completely out of your profession. Don't live like this. Don't live like this, because here in Ukraine it is like this. You only do what you are being told and what you're being taught. Panorama. That's my last word. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this very interesting lecture and these inspirational stories. I would like to ask all participants, we've got the feedback form. If you please take a few minutes to fill it out so we know about your thoughts and the feedback about this lecture. And we hope to see you at our next events. We welcome you to join them. Thank you.
Maybe in Stellenbosch there will be